Hello. So, this is my first time in Colombia. I'm really excited to be here. How many people are from Colombia here? And so, almost all of you. And if you were asked to identify, do you think that the first thing you would say is, I'm Colombian? Probably, maybe. How many of you identify as Hispanic, como hispana? So, less. No, all of you, but it took a while to get there. The weird thing about being a Latina in the US, Hispanic and Latino are used pretty interchangeably, is that it's like the first thing that people know about me. Even though both my parents are from Argentina, I was born in New York, but almost always the way that you end up being identified in the US if you come from a Spanish-speaking country is as Latino or Hispanic. But the term Hispanic didn't actually exist officially in the US until 1970. And it was actually like an invention. If you look at the definition of Hispanic, it literally is in reference to the US, a Spanish-speaking person, especially one of Latin American descent, living in the US. And the reason that it became official in the 70s is it was the first time that people were asked in the census to identify that way. And so there were all these promotional ads put out asking people to identify themselves if they came from Spanish-speaking countries as Hispanic.
Hola, soy Frank Crow de Los Ángeles Rams. El censo del 1980 es muy importante para toda la gente latina, porque es como contamos en el futuro de este país.
Hola, soy Luis Tian. Todavía hay tiempo para responder al censo del 80. Es muy importante para todos los hispanos y es confidencial.
Es un debate de cumpleaños. Hola, soy Efraín Herrera de los Hijas de Seattle y esta es mi familia. Estamos contestando la forma del censo de 1980. ¿Usted ya hizo la suya? Todavía no es tarde y es importante para todos.
Hola, ¿viste cómo dicen? But so the question is, why did they feel this need to create the category of Hispanic? I mean, a lot of Colombians might not relate to the experience of an Argentinian, same as they might not relate to the experience of a Puerto Rican. So why this need to unite all of the people from Latin America in a single group within the census? And the answer is that there were two groups that really lobbied for this. One was activists who wanted to go to the government and say, listen, we have so many thousand Spanish speakers in California that need help with bilingual education. We need nurses and hospitals that speak Spanish, and we would really like our numbers to count and the government to know that these needs have to be met. The second group was people who were looking to make commercial money off of the Latino community. So in 1960, Univision started, and they wanted to be able to go to Coca-Cola or some other big company and say, hey, there are this many million Spanish speakers in the US. We have this huge market that only we have here. You should put your ads on our station. And it worked. The US Census started counting how many Hispanics there were in the US, and it was an incredibly powerful tool to show that there are high numbers of Spanish speakers within the United States. But by the same token as that new identity was created within the US to empower and for people to advocate, it can also be used in some sort of problematic ways. So Donald J. Trump claims that he loves Hispanics. This picture is offensive for so many reasons, mainly because I don't know if you've ever been to Mexico, but like there are no taco bowls. That is another weird American invention. But Trump started his election speaking a lot about how he felt the Hispanic community acted within the United States. So this video.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
So this was literally the speech that he announced that he was running for president for, and in the same speech he took it upon himself to categorize all Mexicans as drug dealers, rapists, and some are good people. And I have to admit that after he won with this rhetoric, I had sort of a crisis in faith. So I work for a show, a radio show. It's on the, it's a national show on public radio that's called Latino USA. And it tells the stories of Latinos in the United States. And I always thought about my job as like elevating the voices of people in the country who often weren't portrayed in the media. But I worried that by focusing specifically on Latino stories or Hispanic stories, I was also making them an easy target. You know, when you take an entire group and you lump them into one category, it's also a lot easier to discriminate against them. And so I thought to myself, is it okay that I'm telling Latino stories? And I thought a lot about it, and I think that now more than ever is the time where we should be telling Latino stories. And it's because the way in which they're being portrayed right now in the media by people like Trump provides zero context and is such an incomplete narrative of what it actually means to be Latino. He's describing these drug-dealing, rapist immigrants. The most recent story I did about a group of people who crossed illegally into the United States is about these 4 guys. This is Kelvin, Eliseo, Kevin, and Rene, and they're from El Salvador. And the reason they left is because they were these like 4 skateboard dudes who just wanted to like ride their skateboards, but they would go out and all these different gangs really wanted to recruit them and they didn't feel safe and they wanted to be in a place where they could do their hobby without any fear for their lives. And so I actually didn't meet these guys. I worked with a freelancer, which is something I do very often, who's in Mexico, who told me that he was walking down the street and these like 4 guys just like zoomed down the mountain on their skateboard and they had already been to like 5 different countries, and in each country they would make new friends and they would create like a large skateboard network to get to the border. A couple of them are actually living in the US now. But I think that it's really important that we tell stories that show like what you imagine to be the typical immigrant isn't necessarily always true. One of the gangs that they were escaping from is MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha. And what a lot of people don't know about Mara Salvatrucha is that there was no MS-13 in Central America until a lot of Central American migrants who had ended up in the American prison system in Los Angeles formed the gang in the prison, and then when they were deported back, started recruiting people within Central America. I mean, MS-13 is an American, like US-born gang. And so one of the things that Trump has been doing is he's been going to a lot of different cities and talking about how MS-13 is corroding cities and ruining people's lives and this and that, when in actuality, no one talks about how it's an American-born gang. Similarly, the #1 victim of MS-13 within the US is other migrants who are afraid of deportation. So they don't go to the police, they don't ask for protection, they're terrified. And so I think it's important to be telling these stories. When you have the leader of the free world talking about a group in mass, he called the people in MS-13 animals. I think it is our responsibility as journalists, especially as Latino journalists, to tell those stories and to give context. And the same can be said not just of Latinos within the US, but of the way that the US speaks about places in Latin America. So I think the #1 thing that people in the US know about Colombia is probably the story of Pablo Escobar. And there's a lot of, the main categorization of this country has been as a country with drug trade and all that. But what maybe a lot of people in the US don't know is that the most famous Colombian right now is probably this guy. Yo, what happened to J Balvin? His look has gotten so crazy. Like, what's his name? And J Balvin and Pablo Escobar also are not most of Colombia. As we've heard of these amazing stories all evening, you know, we have people who are inventing things for people with disabilities, you know, amazing scientists that come from Colombia. Why aren't those stories being told in the United States? And so that's why I find the work that I do so important, because I want to illuminate those narratives and tell a more complete story of what it means to be Latino. If we're gonna have this term like Hispanic, that's very problematic, where you're lumping, you know, people in Mexico eat quesadillas and people in Argentina eat empanadas, and they talk very differently and they don't really have that much in common. If we're going to have this entire lumped group together, then we need to tell as many stories as possible so that it doesn't also get used as an excuse to discriminate. against a group of people. So I know a lot of people here are really young. If you're at all interested in telling stories, if you love having people talk to you, which is my favorite part of my job, I highly encourage you to consider becoming a journalist and to tell the most complete and complex Latino stories you possibly can. In today's political climate, it's more important than ever.
Hola, soy Frank Crow de Los Ángeles Rams. El censo en 1980 es muy importante para toda la gente latina, porque es como contamos en el futuro de este país.
Hola, soy Luis Tian. Todavía hay tiempo para responder al censo del 80. Es muy importante para todos los hispanos y es confidencial.
Es un debate de cumpleaños. Hola, soy Efraín Herrera de los Hijas de Seattle y esta es mi familia. Estamos contestando la forma del censo de 1980. ¿Usted ya hizo la suya? Todavía no es tarde y es importante para todos.